Have to know where it's from, that's for sure.
We have a really sophisticated fishing.
All right.
Mark Pexer caught it.
Okay, good morning. Carver County Board of Commissioners, August 19th, 2025. Please stand and say the pledge with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, good morning, and this would be a good time for public comments of anybody who would like to, department heads, sheriff's deputies, anybody, nobody wants anything to say. Finance department. Okay. Agenda review and adoption, and I know that Commissioner Anderson wants to speak briefly about 2.1 before we approve that, and Commissioner Uterman, we are going to amend that consent item 2.11 be moved to our regular session item 3.2. With that.
With those changes, I move approval, sir.
Okay, I got a motion by Lynch and a second by Uterman to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the August 5th, 2025 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Anderson, a second by Fahey to approve the August 5th, 2025 minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Community announcements. Commissioner Uterman.
Well, Mr. Chair, I didn't have a chance to say it the last time, but Night to Unite, I had a chance to ride with Sheriff Cameroon, and one of the pictures that I was searing in my head is there were some little kids that were playing with chalk, and he got down at their level and played tic-tac-toe. He did not win, nor did the kids. It was a cat. So it was kind of fun to see him out and about, and then we spent most of our time in Victoria. And he said, well, where do you want to go? Because I think there was, 80, 90 within the district that I represent, Night to Unite, which is a good number. And I said, go wherever there's orange cones. And so we had a lot of good conversations with people in the neighborhoods about, the questions associated with a lot of the construction that's happening in these districts. Unique experience on Saturday. I had a chance to go to the Renaissance Festival just outside of district. The reason I share that is because Penn and Teller were there. If you haven't heard about them, they 50 years of a career. It started in a small little town called Jonathan, Minnesota, which was annexed through Chaska, of course, the Jonathan neighborhood. And so they were there to do two special shows, and it's kind of cool. Most people that I talk to don't realize that Penn and Teller started their career right here in Chaska and Carver County, and so I wanted to elevate that. Of course, the Renaissance Festival is now in Shakopee. Commissioner Anderson and myself had a chance to be in Duluth the back half of last week with a number of our staff members. Heather's in the audience; she was there as well, and I look forward to that, not only for the meat of the stuff that they talk to, and I'll be honest, some of it's boring and not relevant, but most of it was relevant, and the relationships and the interactions with peers that we don't always see on a regular basis. Commissioner Schulte from Anoka was the MC, if you will. Deed was very well represented there. And dozens and dozens of conversations. They brought in a handful of people from Colorado to share their thoughts. And I'm sure Lisa will be able to share some too. But one of the things I found most fascinating was a gal came in from Vanderbilt University to talk about AI and what AI means in government. And so those things are things that may not have immediate impact today, but they inform some of the things that we do. And I think from a government standpoint, we'll be grappling with that for the next decade plus. Also met a guy named Walter because they do s'mores out on the deck, and I just had to share this. Walter was sitting by the fireplace. We had a good conversation. He said, "Where are you from, young man?" And turns out Walter's about 80 years old. And I said, "From Chaska." And he says, "Do you happen to know Kate?" And I was like, "Do I happen to know Kate?" He's like, "Yeah, I used to work with Kate in Ramsey County." And sure enough, it was Kate Probert, and we had a good conversation about that. Amazing who you learn. And before I left, I said, "Walter, do you have any advice for me?" Because I told him what I do and whatnot. And he says, "You got to stop and listen to the people." Mm-hmm. That was his advice. So I thought that was good. He says, you didn't tell me much about yourself. And I was like, well, I get a little bit long-winded. So it's good that we talked about you, Walter. Next one up is May Costa. I had a chance to be invited to go to a 4th year of soccer camp with Minnesota United. I'm not a big soccer guy, but they brought out 4 of their pro guys. Some of them make a lot of money, and some of them don't even speak English, but they came out to our community. 4th year in a row, and it's unofficially the second largest crowd that they do when they do these things, underwritten by a local insurance company. And Mary and her team helped pave the way for that. It's really cool that's going on. And of course, having school-age kids, I'm a little bit more plugged into some of that stuff. But she also shared with me, Mary shared with me, and other not-for-profits have shared, not-for-profit giving is down 20 to 30% across the state. The need is up, and the demand is up, and the services need for the services are up. So there's a gap that's there. So as we're talking about budget, when we look at our not-for-profit partners, I think we do a really good job of partnering with them. They are struggling. Next one, County Fair. I saw Commissioner Fahey and others out there. It's great to get out there. It's great. 65,000 people a year go out there. And community was built, and my kids loved it, and Motor Kazi was great. And of course, you can't beat the dollar all you can drink milk. So great asset for our community. Leadership, I know Commissioner Anderson and myself have been really interested in leadership. That was a part of the conversation too with the AMC staff. I joined the commissioner plus administrator leadership program that starts in October to learn more. Had a chance to talk to a guy named Jeff in Washington County. They've launched something internal to their county. Of course, they're about double our size, but learnings to be had there. And then some of the people in Duluth were also talking about leadership Twin Cities and other leaderships attached to the chamber. So I'm hoping that we can maybe look into that and bring some of the knowledge that I have back from that AMC course to the group. Back to School Resource Fair happened last week, a partnership mostly led by the district, but county was present. And thank you for staff that was there. Sometimes it can be a heavy lift, but it was the first time and people were invited out. They had 500 backpacks, but other things available to kids. And when my kid's on the softball field or basketball field, I see the kids that are on the field, but I also see the kids that aren't on the field. And so I think this was an event that was able to close some of the barriers. When I was in Duluth, I also got a chance to sit in on the quarterly tourism update for Duluth. And so, it's been a passion of mine here, and we do it whether we overtly do it here or not. But they're struggling up there a little bit, 13% down on tourism, largely from people from Canada not coming through and then some of the smoke. But to be in touch with some electeds that were in there and business owners and seeing what that does for the community was impressive. And then 2 more things. Brooklyn and Tenley, their birthdays are this week, 6 and 10, so call out to them. And why does that matter? I think I've also said, the things that are part of it helps open my eyes. And so recently we were in Elk River and Andover. And if you haven't been up that way and take Highway 610, there is a massive amount of development that's happening up there. And when I say development, I don't mean households. I mean industrial and commercial development. And as I talk to local folks, in fact, I'm talking to the mayor of Blaine later today to find out what is their magic mix and how are they going about it. Massive amounts of tax base to alleviate some of the pressures on households. And so I'm plugged in on that. And if anybody wants to learn, sorry, one last thing. Tomorrow's a mental health panel. Dr. Scott's going to take my place on that panel. Senator Coleman's going to be speaking. 2 corporate CEOs will be there, a couple technology folks. We're having that up at Hazeltine. And then I know my understanding is that mental health forum that we had a year or 2 ago, we're going to resurrect that and have that on a semi-regular basis at Ridgeview. So focus and keeping our eye on the ball. Mental health is something we don't talk about a whole heck of a lot, but it's on everybody's minds and it's part of our budgets too. So thank you.
Commissioner
right.
Anderson.
All right, thank you. As Commissioner Uterman stated, I was at the workforce conference and first time there, obviously. And so it was kind of good to hear kind of what's going on from a state budget and workforce funding, workforce development and helping people get into the workforce is truly an upstream item, and so it was good to be there. And workforce development is economic development. So I look forward to kind of diving in a little bit more with our workforce people here in Carver County and how we can connect with businesses in our cities in developing that workforce. I also had a chance to go on the CDA tour. What a fantastic tour that was. I had an opportunity to see a variety of different housing options, future building opportunities, and some that are going to open up very soon here. I was just really impressed with the workmanship, and I will never use that word again, Commissioner Workman.
You didn't say Fahey shit.
I did not. But how we really put so much effort into that. I mean, the difference between what CDA does and what some affordable housing units that may be run by private industry is these are done with really dignity and respect for the individuals that are going to live there. I get inspired a bit when I think about how many people that CDA houses. And so I asked Allison, and she's kind of throwing some, trying to get a number together. But it's well over 1,000 people just in the affordable and subsidized housing. And if you think about that, that's about 1% of Carver County's population. And we have 4% of the population living under in poverty. So that's really looking at serving about between 20 and 25% of that population, which is extraordinary. And so one of Allison, who is the executive director of the CDA, is working on is what are those metrics and how do we measure our progress? But I was truly impressed with that. And then I also did get a chance to take in the Carver County Fair. I saw our county attorney, Mark Metz, there, and our sheriff there, and I know the libraries was there. And so it was really nice to see Carver County represented there. So appreciate that. And that's all I have.
Very good.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Fahey?
thank you. It was another great Carver County Fair. I had the opportunity to volunteer every day at the fair and just really enjoy it, and just wanted to say thank you to the Fair Board and all the volunteers that continue to make the Carver County Fair a huge success that it is. This week, I'm heading to an AMC Leadership and Strategic Planning Conference, part of being on that AMC Executive Board, so looking forward to that. And then probably the most important thing is Stifton's Fest is this weekend, 164th annual celebration out in NYA. It is more than a German celebration. It's entertainment for all ages with continuous music all weekend long. Food, beer, free parking, softball, friends, family, sheephead, cribbage, kickball, craft fair, fun run, car show, and more. So definitely venture out to NYA this weekend for a little German fun. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Oldest continuous community celebration in Minnesota.
Correct.
I can taste a burger right now. All right. Commissioner Lynch, how about you?
It was a fun time at the fair. It was a lot of fun. I bought some very expensive chickens, very expensive. But other than that, it was the weather was a little warm, so I think attendance was down just a tad. But all in all, it was a wonderful time. And when you mentioned Stiftenfest burgers, it just they are unbelievable. But you don't never know how long it's going to last too. It's only lasted for 164 years. They could be gone next year, so we better go this year.
Maybe I just didn't eat a good enough breakfast this morning. I was at the Renaissance Festival in Jonathan, and I was selling soda pop.
Really?
My father was the president of the Chaska Chamber, and they had a tent selling soda pop. I remember the wasps attracted by the soda pop and working hard because it was a very, very busy thing. But it was a really an anomaly, for a young guy in the, what year did it start? 70s?
Yeah.
So I'd have been a young teenager, but it was a really different kind of thing. And I was probably too young to even understand at that time, but good fun. I think that's about all I have or worth mentioning. All right, consent agenda. I have a consent agenda that has been amended, moving item 2.11 to item 3.2.
And I would just wanted to make a comment on or we're going to move that, or can I just make a comment?
Commissioner Anderson moves, and Commissioner Lynch seconds the consent agenda as amended.
Got it.
Commissioner Anderson.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to comment on the library short-term, what is
stock-eye budget adjustment. So I appreciate you putting this on there. For many who don't know, we have a hiring freeze at the moment. So our library is about 5 headcount short. So they've had to make, and they've really taken one for the team in working through the shortage and covering for each other and covering hours and reducing the amount of public events that they can attend. So I appreciate this item being put on and kind of giving them the funding they need to get through this year. So that's all I wanted to say for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I have a motion and a second for the consent agenda as amended. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. All right, our regular agenda has two items now on it. Strategic plan, item 3.1. County Administrator Hemsey.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Good morning, board members. Colin, could you slide the screen down for me? We've all been working hard, of course, on updating our strategic plan. I would label it as a pretty major overhaul from plans of the past. Initiated, boy, that was back in probably February, March, as we looked for some assistance in that. Hired Dave Unmock, former Scott County Administrator, who did a real nice job with it, helping us and guiding the various discussions, of which there were many. You likely recall he started with some board one-on-one interviews and moved into a board work session and then a board and division director meeting. That was April and May. And then we shaped the document up, had a discussion in late June in the board room here. And one of the requests that came out of that discussion was a request for additional staff input and feedback, which thank you to the division directors and others that have been working hard on that. In the meantime, between June and now, and I'll summarize that in a minute. If I can move the screen. There we go. Okay. But first, let me put up the vision and mission statements. We did not discuss updating this, so it is as is. The wording that's in front of you. I do think, as you look at the plan and how it was laid out, I think it certainly was maybe a little bit too detailed, which was one of the efforts was to raise us up to a higher level and have the board give some good direction as the board's owning this plan and document. But we'll just take a moment to recognize, these documents don't necessarily change the world here. They're important strategic documents looking ahead. And I think sometimes we forget all the good work that's going on in the meantime and in the past. And, if you think about things like Carver Link or the projects, all you need to do is drive around, right? And notice what's going on with all the road projects. Those don't happen by chance. And in part, they are guided by this document and these efforts and the board's focus and priorities. So thank you to the board for that. But numerous other examples I won't mention today, but let's just recognize all that good work has been going on. It continues to today. And then this document then helps guide that to make sure we're on track, that the work goes on tomorrow and beyond that. So the priorities the board had arrived at, there were 3 of them, intentionally trying to keep this high level and relatively simple, memorable. The 3 listed on the board, taxpayer value and customer service, are physical assets, and people are our strength. So those were the 3 really high sort of umbrella priorities that the board had talked about to guide all the initiatives that go on. And there's so many of them, sometimes it's hard to capture them all, but to guide overall all the initiatives in our organization at a higher level. And below that, beneath those umbrellas, there were related strategies. And then, of course, the goals where in effect the work is done, right, at the goal level. And you can definitely make the connections to all these goals and what is going on and what will go on organizationally, all the way back up from the entire organization into the boardroom. One of the things I'll I'll be recommending here is updating our board packet to reflect the new priorities. So everything that comes through here, all the action that you do will attach back to the plan. I won't go through all of the goals here, but I would note that as you talked about this over the past several months and on June 24th, the latest effort, and this is not necessarily new, organizationally, we're doing this all the time, talking about employee goals that blends into the performance evaluation system, and we intentionally try to attach that back to the strategic planning efforts to make sure that's in alignment with the board. But that has been the discussion with between June and now. How do we attach these priorities that are board-driven, and so there's board guidance, how do we attach those back to employees' jobs, right? So I would say that, the feedback, I've got pages and pages, by the way, of feedback from division directors that said, here's the kind of discussions that we've had to connect down to the goal level, the various elements of this plan. Oh, by the way, let me back up a minute here. Because one, this is a relatively important item I want to point out. One area I did hear some feedback on, well, why are people our strength number 3? That should be a higher priority. Well, I added the note, an important one on the bottom that says the priorities listed above are not in order of importance. I recollect the discussions with the board. That was intentional, not to try and pick one over the other, but to focus on 3 things and list them. So just a note on that. That was added, and that was added in the document too, which by the way is in your packet.
And Administrator Hemsey, on that note, everything that is on here can happen unless, they happen all through our people. So thank you for adding that note as well.
I would agree, Mr. Commissioner Workman and Commissioner Anderson. Again, I see this as, it's a great guiding document, but it's not worth much unless the work is done, right? And that's why I think it is extremely important to connect this back to the folks getting the job done, but yet to make sure it's in alignment with where the board wants to go. And I won't go through the various goals. We talked about the priorities, et cetera, but these again aren't necessarily earth-shattering. It's kind of like, well, yeah, of course we're doing that. Some of this is a bit new if you think about exactly how, for example, if you look at, let's go back to number 1 here. If you look at goal number 1 under taxpayer value, how are we going to address those state mandates? Well, that's always been out there. We've had that as a legislative priority ever since I got here decades ago. But this is a sort of evolving new element that's coming into play with the significant additional cost shift. So there are efforts below every one of these goals, and I think that's a great example, that are a little bit different this time in terms of strategies that we'll need to come up with to help you meet that goal all the way up to adding to that taxpayer value. So stay tuned. Literally, next Tuesday, we'll be talking about the budget. This Thursday, the packet will be distributed. So great example there, I think, of, this document is kind of like, you can say, well, that makes sense. Those have always been in play, but they're always evolving and changing, which takes some additional intentional strategies that you see coming through the boardroom every Tuesday. So there's these 3 priorities and the related goals, and then put together just a high-level slide. And okay, what did we do based upon that request? We did take that staff input, looking for a written and verbal feedback from employees, and then asking pretty basic questions. How do those goals in particular relate to the department goals or their specific jobs? And that feedback was gathered. Much of that is integrated into employees' performance plans and their everyday effort. And as I mentioned, that's an ongoing process. We just don't do that once a year. That intentionally should be done ongoing throughout the year. I could give you some examples. There are numerous, but just to put that in perspective, as I heard back from division directors, for example, in public services at Nick's area, he commented on there's one of the goals related to technology. So utilizing artificial intelligence, for example, how do we utilize and leverage that technology to improve our customer service? That would be the priority area that is under. How would we utilize AI to improve employee and organizational efficiency and customer service. Again, a great example where, boy, that is evolving. Talk about something that has jumped in front of us and now seemingly changes every day. That is a powerful thing that we can harness to some degree, but we need to do it intentionally. So again, that's how we're putting this together. So Nick, Pete Henschel, the IT director, others are working together to try and figure out, well, how do we do that, and then incorporate that back up the organizational chain all the way into the boardroom. And you'll see various efforts. In the budget, for example, there will be a request for licensing for Copilot, which is the tool that we will use for artificial intelligence. So in some cases, you may need to make a little investment to get that return, right? So just to piece this together, there seemed to be a question about, well, how do we make sure this is actually working and ultimately making sense in terms of being pragmatic and useful, right? We don't want to put a document together that isn't useful, of course. So that's one example. Another one would be Lyndon's area. You've heard about his asset management program. Well, that's another great tool, but you can shift and shape that depending on the goals of the board. But making sure that's utilized to ensure safe and suitable infrastructure, as we talk about that strategic priority, the physical asset piece. So I think Lyndon and his crew probably have every physical asset piece down to the manhole covers, right? That's pretty amazing stuff. But then how do you use that? How do you shape it? Manhole covers are one thing. What about the road projects and the condition of the roads or vehicles? All that sort of thing, integrated, talked about. That's what the employees are working on, right? His staff, and then integrating that ultimately into the document itself. Just a couple examples, and I have numerous other ones. If you want to chat about it later, we can certainly do that. So next step, real important piece of this is how are we communicating this? How are we talking about it in the boardroom, beyond that, to our employees, to our citizens, raising that knowledge? What are the efforts? And it's not just this planning document, right? We have these other big processes going on. The budget will be a real critical one. And making sure we're communicating that effectively. How does that integrate into the plan, back to taxpayer value, et cetera, and making sure that folks understand that. And then operationalizing them all the way down to the staff level and tracking that progress in the end through various performance measurements. And once in a while, we like to celebrate. We're not real good at that, but every year I have, during December, I bring all the managers together. We talked a little bit about, boy, what did we accomplish? Pretty amazing when you start talking about the various things that have gone on and the accomplishments. So every once in a while, again, it's good to say, this is something that's working, and let's recognize that as then we look into the future. So the recommendation, Mr. Chair, board members, is to adopt a plan, and I would take questions.
Okay, anybody got a question? Or have, I should say, sorry. Sister Cecilia? Anybody have a suggestion? I see no discussion.
I would move approval, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion by Commissioner Lynch.
I do actually have a comment. but
Can I
if
get
it's-
a second from somebody?
I'll second.
I got Commissioner Fahey got the second, so I got a motion and a second. Let's discuss.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Administrator Hemsey, for the time and effort you put into that, and to our division directors who have put a lot of time and effort into this. And thank you for kind of taking the time to reach out to staff. I was hoping for something more direct and intentional staff. I know that you went through the division directors and, but it all works out. And I also did get the feedback on, people is our third, which isn't actually. So I appreciate that thought. And I also appreciate that this is going to be continually updated. One of the things that I'd like to see as a next step to this is trying to identify metrics and how are we doing in some of these areas. And I know that that's a challenge. And it's a challenge in the government. It's a challenge in every area. And what are we really trying to accomplish, and what are some of those key performance metrics let us know how we're doing. So I see that very much as a next step as we evolve this. This is a step in the right direction. And I caution, it's easy to kind of go down that level of detail. And so I want to make sure that these are the unique things that we're doing, not our daily operations. So it's not always what you do, because what we do is not changing here. It's how we do it. And that's how this strategic plan in my brain will lay itself, plays itself out. So I think this plan reflects the priorities of yourself and the majority of the board, and look forward to further discussions on how we continue to refine it and create those metrics so we know how we're doing.
No other discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Hooterman?
So I've shared these comments from the start. I think this is the most important thing that we do as a board. We cast vision. So our organization knows where we're going and equally where we're not going. And I think that 26 is going to be a tough year. I think 27, 28, 29 is going to be an even bigger year. And when we make those decisions, budget decisions, I think we need to have a true north to say, well, this is very clear to say that we're going to do this and pursue it, and we're not. Things that we're not going to do. I want to affirm the three things that are here, and I argue to say let's just go ahead and make people our strength number one. That could be the people within our organization. That can be people within our community. So why not just move it to number one? And I know that there's been a little bit of pushback on that. But of course, people are our strength. 85% of our budget goes towards people and their benefits. Physical assets, I think we've made huge strides. When I came in, we didn't have a budget plan for the 600 building, and now we do. When I came in, I think there's 7, maybe 8 buildings that have roofs that are over 25 years old. You're addressing it. We had 20 years deferred maintenance on our parks. We're doing that, right? And so I think it's a shift, a significant shift from the last 20 years to the last 5 years about physical assets. And then taxpayer value and customer service, of course, that's what we do. But I think if we handed this to staff at the current place where we're at right now, would we say that our actions match our words? Our people are our strength. I don't know if we asked them that they would say that. Would they say that physical assets is our strategic plan priority? I think based on our holdings right now, we would say no. Are we heading that direction? Maybe. And so like where I'm at right now, we as a board, the pace of the leaders, the pace of the team, we're setting vision that our staff is going to make decisions on to say, am I going to do this in my daily life or am I not? We're setting up our managers or we're not setting them up to say, I can say yes to this because it's in the strategic plan, or I can say no if it's not in the strategic plan. It's not lost on me. Most of the people that are listening to this are probably staff, right? And it may cascade. But we collectively as a board said that we wanted to work cohesively as a board. And I think what comes with that is also accountability. And we said that we would have 3 to 5 objective realities coming out of this, that at the end of a year or 2 years or 3 years, we could say, Dave Hemsey, way to go. You delivered it because you're our leader, or we didn't. And quite frankly, we didn't get there. And so I'm not going to be supporting this today. I do support the principles that are here. I do support movement in a different direction. And I'd invite other people to do the same thing. There's not been a single strategic priorities pathway that I've been through that didn't reaffirm values as the foundation. We didn't reaffirm our values. There's not been a single strategic priorities pathway that I've gone through that we haven't authentically reached out to our frontline staff and listened to them. And of course, the buck stops with us. We cast the vision. But if we want 750 employees to contribute to what this is going to mean, they should be part of the process. And I think they were largely left out. And so I'd encourage and invite my board members to join me in saying, this is not delivered to what we said we were going to set out to do. And then one last thing, when I sat down with Dave Unmacht, I said, hey, I really think we need to have some definitive objective metric to say what is the health of our organization. And he was befuddled and surprised to say of all the enterprises that he's worked with, he says, we don't have that in Carver County? And I said, we don't. We don't. And I've offered suggestions as to what that might look like. It doesn't need to be Matt's idea. But if our staff don't know objectively, or if we don't know objectively how our staff is feeling about these things, then I think we missed the mark. And so I fully support these priorities. People are our strength, our physical assets, taxpayer value, and service. I just think the plan falls short of giving clarity to our staff and our team and holding ourselves accountable. So I won't be supporting it today. Thanks.
Commissioner Fahey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I read the vision statement and where the future builds on the past, and keeping Carver County a great place to live, work, and play for the lifetime for all our residents. I really believe in that vision. And with all the priorities and all the strategies, as we look at this being a board document, this is our plan, it's our guidance. We're striving and driving us, obviously, to a higher level, and I believe in supporting all of that. And we are in the growth mode in Carver County, without a doubt. Being pro-growth, being pro-business, pro-community, all that is driven by having quality county policies, the infrastructure and the services, which is all done by our quality staff, and we continue to deliver that day in and day out. So I will be supporting this motion, sir.
Commissioner Lynch, any comments?
No one, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. I think the plan is maybe a start. I don't know that we're going to bring Mr. Unmock back in here. I think he did a good job working with at least 5 county commissioners who are all pretty strong and independent about what we want to do and where we want to go. I don't think this has to be the end. I don't know that you close this up and throw it in a safe. And I don't know that any county commissioner on here wouldn't tell you they value every single one of our employees for their input. But I think those goals for priority that is in the 3rd spot, but not by ranking, develop methods to engage employees and build to strengthen culture of the organization, and there's 3 others. I think we do cover that. I have always heard the 85% rule about the price of government and employees. I think with the money that Lyndon has brought in for our highways, we might actually be a little lower than the 85%, but I know this, 100% of every dollar we spend comes from my taxpayers. So I can make this a employee-heavy thing. They're here every day, and they're the ones that are going to be able to give me and this board the input way more often than my taxpayers do, who are busy paying their taxes and working. So when we're not arranging the priority, but I would never want to underestimate the power of the people who pay for everything that we do. And so we are their conduit to our staff to do what it is we can hopefully do the best and efficiently and cheaply and creatively. So I think this is a great start to a plan that doesn't have to. I would hope that this is going to stay in my binder. I'd hope that I would revisit it, and if we have ideas about what should be changed, I know that I think we kind of got off on this being maybe a big piece of the county administrator's review, and I think we're going to have that discussion at the end of the year, or is that in January? County administrator, that's January.
No, it should be.
Starts the end of the year, and then it goes into January.
And so how, I think at that point, how we connect this to our county administrator and into his review probably is very appropriate. So a great start, I think. I'm going to support it, but I'm not going to put it away. So.
And Commissioner, Chair Workman, one more comment. And I will connect the dots. So I used to work a lot in universities, and there's 2 different strategies in universities of connecting the sidewalks and the pathways from building to building. One of them is the landscape architect comes in and, builds those firm paths. And the other is to see where the beaten path is, to see where the kids walk, to see where the administrator walks, and then put in those pathways. I kind of like the second pathway, and I see that that's how we're going to refine this process. I would agree. I would have liked to seen more engagement, more direct engagement from people. But I also realize that sometimes we just have to sit in it, and we just sort of have to see. Every time I've talked to employees of this organization, they have given me an earful of ideas and suggestions, and they're just full of passion for the work they do for our community. And so I just really hope we can continue to lean in to our people and figure out what those pathways are, and to continue to refine this by identifying those measures and those metrics that will show how much work and how much value we add to those taxpayers.
Well, and Commissioner Anderson, I like to look at the traffic at health clubs. People who've just worked out for an hour and a half and run 3 miles, and if you look at the sidewalks, they all want to save about 3 or 4 steps. And
Yes,
not
they
stay
do.
on the sidewalk. So we want to take shortcuts in life, and that's the end of my philosophy for the day.
It is true. I do
it is
complain when I have to park too far away from my health club.
That's right. That's right. So, but anyway, I appreciate all the comments, and County Administrator Hemsey, thank you very much for your leadership and hard work on this, and we'll see you at your review at the end of the year. So,
Look forward to it. Thank you.
but I know I do have a motion and a second, right? Lynch and Fahey, I think. So, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Okay, we moved item 2.11 to this point, joint powers agreement with Southwest Transit for transit and mobility study. And I have Mr. Robgent here, and we have Mr. Hanson here from Southwest Transit to address some concerns perhaps Mr. Uderman has.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Lyndon Robgent, Carver County Public Works Director. Pleasure to be here. We talked about the growth in the county, and it is, we are the highest growth county in the state. Exciting times. With that, transportation is more and more important, and so is transit. So we do have an opportunity here. With opportunity comes responsibility. We have new funding, as you guys know, with the Transportation Advancement Account the legislature created in the 2023 session. So the county is getting funding to improve our transit system. So with that, you also know that there is a transit working group in the county that's been meeting over the last few years. But now we have some funding. I think that's taken that to the next level. We talked about a couple ideas with the board at a couple work sessions. Low-hanging fruit was expanding our transit link or smart link system to weekend ridership and doing a shopping loop, and those are ongoing and working well. The other one was to really take a step back, look at our whole county and what our future transit needs are, and that's where we are today. So we have gone through a process of figuring out a scope of what a transit mobility study would look like. We're going to have Southwest Transit, who are the experts in transit, certainly not me. So we have Eric here to kind of say a few words about the study and what we expect to get out of it. There's some information in your packet as well. So I'd like to introduce Eric Hansen from Southwest Transit. We also have Kate Probert online. I know she's on vacation, but she's kind of heading up the transit working group and is a key participant. And then our project manager from Stantec, who will be doing the study, Ella Rasp, is also online if you have questions. Eric, come on up.
You bet. Thanks, Lyndon.
Chair Workman and members of the board, thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it. Just a few words. I do want Ella to say a few comments about what the project entails exactly, because there's kind of 6 tasks to it. But I do want to set it up a little bit in terms of, why we're doing this. One of the biggest reasons is next year we have the regional solicitation through the TAB. Through a process that happens kind of every 10 years, they actually change the scoring criteria with a whole bunch of different categories. So the 2026 regional solicitation is going to look a lot different than in previous years. There is a specific category for transit in that regional solicitation and transit expansion. And so it's kind of one of those opportunities that only comes around every couple of years. Some of the things that are included in that, solicitation for transit specifically is they're going to be looking at, things like demonstrated need. Is it part of a regional plan and things like that? And so it makes a lot of sense for us to go and do a study like this because it demonstrates some of that need, demonstrates kind of that it's part of a plan. You just did your strategic plan as an example. And this kind of, flows from that. Also, transit is called out in your county's comprehensive plan as well. And so it makes sense in terms of being able to demonstrate that need. In addition to that, part of the task of this is to have Stantec put together the application for that as well. And so the idea is they would take it all the way through that entire process. And I think there's kind of a secondary benefit. Actually, the staff in Stantec, your staff and our staff in Stantec had kind of an initial meeting at the end of July. And one of the things that was raised is, of course, earlier this year, the legislature tried to take this funding away from you. Or I should say the legislature didn't try. It's just some other folks tried to take that funding away from you. And one of the criticisms was, well, you're not spending that money. Well, we know that's not true, first of all, because some of that money's already been spent in the county on programs with Transit Link and Alan Herm's operation. But I think that this is the kind of thing that shows that, hey, we're really actually doing some things with the money that you're getting for that 3/4 cent sales tax. So I think those are a really couple of big reasons that make sense. And in the long run, really, it's about mobility. This is the fastest growing county in the state, I believe, at this point, certainly in the metro area. And so as the county continues to urbanize and, places like Chaska and Victoria continue to grow, you're going to have an increased need for transit. And certainly our ridership is going up. And it's serving people throughout the county as well as other areas. And we think that is going to be an increasing need, particularly microtransit. This is very popular in Chanhassen, Chaska, Victoria, and the city of Carver. And so we think that this study will also demonstrate some need, particularly as the county continues to grow. And so with that, I would like to have Ella Rasp from Stantec, who is online, and I don't know how this works exactly, if she can just start talking or if there's something that needs to be done with that. Talk a little bit about kind of the elements of the study, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Ella Rask.
RASP with a P.
Rasp.
A-R-A-S-P, yes.
Even better. Hi, Ella.
Hold on.
Hold on, Ella.
Just no sound yet, Ella. Just a second. Try now, Ella. No.
Oh,
Try the speaker.
Right.
There she is.
Ella, try if you could.
test.
Mis-
There you go.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for having me.
Good, we can hear you.
That
Yep.
was a yes?
Thumbs
You're
up.
good.
Thumbs up, Ella.
Okay.
You thought you were a
Great.
mime.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for having me. We're really pleased to be partnering with Southwest Transit in Carver County to deliver this transit and mobility study. We've put together a framework for how we would propose to get this work done and produce really robust and actionable results for Carver County to implement. Our scope is structured around 6 tasks, as Eric mentioned. We're going to start off with a base foundation of project management to produce a robust and accountable process that integrates staff from both agencies. We'll also be producing a first step of mobility and transit needs assessment. This is where we will take a data strategy that brings together population metrics, jobs metrics, transit operational data, and origin and destination trip data about how people are traveling today in Carver County, bring all those pieces together to get a clear picture of how people are moving in the county today and how transit can help meet those needs throughout the county and in specific areas where we can tailor services to meet those needs. The third task we'll be implementing is a stakeholder engagement approach. We've proposed 3 rounds of engagement, the first being an initial listening round where we're listening about the existing transit service needs, potential barriers to using transit, and suggestions for future services that would meet people's needs. We'll have a second round that's about getting feedback on a couple different proposals for transit service ideas based on the data analysis. And then finally, a round 3 where we're reporting back out to the community and being transparent and accountable about the outcomes of this study. The fourth piece of our approach will then to be we'll be producing a transit and microtransit operations alternatives. So this will be where we take all of the data and the engagement results and create transit solutions and things that could be implemented with the existing funding that Carver County has access to, as well as the funding through the regional solicitation. And we'll produce some analysis about how those transit service options could serve the needs that have been documented and ultimately arrive at a proposal for what can be implemented. All of this work then would be prepared into a final report such that the public and all of the stakeholders can really see the results of what this planning process has produced. And then our team will come up through and help follow through on producing that funding application. We're bringing in not only local staff like myself who bring, kind of that local expertise about how these regional funding programs operate, but also national expertise from our North American Funding Program who bring grant experience from across the country to produce a really robust application to pursue those funds. So we're really pleased to be partnering with you and would love to answer any questions that you have on our approach.
Thank you, Ella. And ultimately, the action before you is actually a joint powers agreement between Southwest Transit and Carver County. My board has the same action on their agenda on Thursday night, which is our monthly board meeting. And essentially what that does is in collaboration with the county, delegates kind of, managing the task and making sure that this happens to Southwest Transit with funds from Carver County to make that happen on a reimbursement basis. We see this as a partnership ultimately, between us and Carver County, and also with involvement, with Transit Link as well and others. And there'll be a kind of a steering group, I guess you could say, that's kind of put together to help guide it ultimately. But that's essentially what the action is. And with that, I'd be happy to answer and Ella, of course, would be happy to answer any questions about the content of the study or anything else you would like to know.
Commissioner Anderson.
What is microtransit?
Oh, that's a good question. Usually we talk about things in transit in kind of 3 categories. You have, fixed route bus, which is regular stops, and then you have fixed rail, which we have a little bit of that in the Twin Cities, but not here in Carver County. And the last one is a general category called demand response. In other words, you set up a ride where they come to your home and take you to a specific location. Microtransit is kind of an enhanced version of demand response. It's like shared ride Uber service, if that makes sense. And so our Southwest Prime program is essentially that, where you can either call us or use an app on your phone, and you would get a ride. We've been, this year, averages about 22, 23 minutes, to wait, in order to get that ride in our service area. And then they take you to your destination, which is on us is another 20 or 25 minutes. So, I mean, it's a lot of demand responses. You kind of have to schedule it ahead of time. What makes microtransit different is that you don't have to schedule it. It's on demand, usually through an app on your phone.
That's helpful. I think one of the things that I have definitely heard, and of course I was just at the workforce conference, so but I've also seen this as a volunteer. The cost of an automobile is extremely expensive and has gotten more and more expensive.
sure.
And some people just simply can't afford that. So having that transportation to and from, I gave a ride home to a woman who simply couldn't have a better paying job because she didn't have a means to get there. So I guess, and people struggle to get to the grocery stores or to the doctors or whatever if they don't have that reliable transportation. So I don't know if that's going to be addressed in this study. I don't know, and I'm seeing a nod.
Yes. That's a really good question, Commissioner, and it's something that sometimes people forget about. I mean, I know Ella could comment on that, but just a little bit about Southwest Transit and what we see from the survey data that we talk to our customers about. Of the people that use our bus service, 75% of those people are taking it to work. And of the people that use our microtransit service, the Southwest Prime, a little over half of those people are going to work. And 60% of the people that use that service use it because they don't have a car, or they don't drive. In reality, transit in a lot of ways is an economic development issue, right? Because we need to get people to the locations where they work. I know the current administration is really refocusing kind of a lot of its grants on, job-related and economic development issues, and particularly suburban areas, getting people to jobs in more core urban areas. In reality, that's a lot of what we do. It's a core economic development issue. And I don't know if you want to add to that, Ella.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. A lot of our approach is going to be focused on gathering data not only on job destinations, but also where people are living today in relation to those jobs, right? And making sure that we're designing services that make the connections where they are needed most. And then we'll look at other types of trips too, like you were mentioning, Commissioner, grocery stores, doctor's appointments, those essential trips that make participation in the community possible. So we'll be gathering data and asking people qualitatively as well about their experience with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Uderman.
You had me at economic development. Thanks for saying that.
Sure.
That lost me what Commissioner Workman said earlier about all these dollars are taxpayer dollars. And so when I saw $152,000, that's a lot of money. And sometimes I think in the path of expense, and other times I look at it in a form of investment. And I think you've answered a lot of those questions. This is an investment to set us up for a whole bunch of other stuff. When we first had this conversation, or when we last had the conversation, I think our entire focus was on the top area that we identified informally is our opportunity was in Waconia. Mm-hmm. And then when it got bigger than that, I was like, well, wait a minute, why don't we take that $152,000 and invest in a physical bus to go test it so we can actually have physical results? I'm not a huge fan of spending a lot of money on studies and surveys and seeing nothing as a result. But it feels like this has the building blocks that are bigger than that. And originally, I would have been like, let's spend the 152 on a couple bus routes and let's get it up and running and have actual data. But it looks like it's an investment at a perfect time to get more match. I also think that staff should know that we're looking at these things because we got soft freeze and it's like, wait a minute, you're spending $152,000 on a study. Why can't we spend it over here? And so I've heard my answers. I guess the last question I have, and I'm a big fan of autonomous, and I want it to be in Carver County as soon as you're done doing your thing in Eden Prairie, and maybe you can share pieces of that. But is there a way that we can cost share? It looks like Carver County controlled money is paying for the entirety of this. Is there a way that we can bring in our partners? If Waconia is the focus area, could City of Waconia help us be partner and pay 20%? Could Southwest Transit pay 20%? Could, Cologne or anywhere else pay 20%? Or is this intended for Carver County to carry the whole freight? I think you get a lot more buy-in when you have other partners contributing. So curious about if we could share costs on this to defray the county.
That's a good question. I can't speak for the other communities, so you'd have to ask them the answer to that question. But ultimately, I can talk about it from Southwest Transit's perspectives. And let me say this, actually, this is an important point, because I do understand the whole taxpayers piece, well, why can't you spend this money on, hiring somebody at the library? We were talking about that earlier,
That's a really good
and the short answer is you can't, because this is a specific bucket of money that is targeted for transit and a few other uses. So even if you wanted to take this money and spend it on a library, you legally can't do it. So in reality, and then that's one of the, in some ways, kind of frustrating things, in local government, is you might have certain buckets of money you can only spend on certain things. You can't take certain human services money you might be getting from the state and spending that on roads, for example. It's all over your budget. And so that's I think, a difficult spot as commissioners that you get put in, but ultimately this is a specific bucket of money that can be spent on these kinds of things. And there's been a little bit of that. I can't speak for how much money you have in total, but I'm confident that it's more than $152,000. And so, that's one thing I think is important to know. From Southwest Transit's perspective, I will tell you, my board has given me direction that on a couple of things, but one is that ultimately we are spending resources, and I'll give you a couple of examples, not just our staff time in terms of doing it, but one of the things that Ella didn't mention is that we have a survey that we do every 2 years, a community survey. Normally, we survey just our service areas like Carver and Chaska and Victoria and Chanhassen, but in this case, we actually expanded it to include other parts of Carver County so that we can ask questions about how they feel about transit. Do they use transit? Is this something that they're interested in doing, and things like that? Ella provided some feedback on some of the questions that we're doing, and so that's some additional cost. So you could, I think I could make the argument, and I think it's true, that we're actually contributing a lot of the soft costs, because one of the things that Lyndon told us was that they weren't sure that, and Paul, I think, said the same thing, that they weren't sure how much staff time that they could contribute to it. So in reality, we're kind of contributing that soft, that staff time. And that would be kind of our perspective on it. So I do think it is a partnership. It's just not necessarily in that number specifically.
Thank you. I'd move approval so we
Sure.
can move it to more discussion.
Okay, I got a motion,
Second.
and I got a second. Just to throw in, mobility is, well, for me, it's been a very important part of my political career. Having run successfully in 1988, what is the start year of Southwest Transit, 88 or 86?
86.
86. And having watched it evolve and do all these things. But when your inability to have mobility hits you, like it did to me back in June because I had surgery on an Achilles on my gas pedal foot, of all things.
Yeah.
There's a correlation there.
Overuse.
I first drove my vehicle yesterday for the first time, so thank you for putting up with all of this. But the having to ask Mrs. Workman to give me a ride to any and all meetings, not to mention breweries and other things, really brings into focus. I did buy a little motor scooter step through that I didn't have to gas pedal, and that was kind of the bonus of the whole thing. But and likewise, my father, who got Parkinson's disease and who helped start a little coffee club in 1968 at the Chaska Bakery, and suddenly found himself without a car. The best thing I could do for him was get him to coffee up at the lodge or at the Chaska Bakery, it sort of brings into focus, I think, where this thing is going to try and pinpoint and get to the bottom. But there's got to be 1,000 different reasons why people don't have mobility, and why they need it, or where they need it, jobs, et cetera. So I'm looking forward to it. It's a topic very much of interest to me, so that's all I got. And Eric, thank you for all you do over there. Are you 3 years in now here?
I'm in my third year, yes, 2 years and 2 months, yeah.
Sounds like it's time to celebrate at Tequila Butcher with you.
Love that.
Commissioner Hooterman.
While we have you, because it's rare that you're in the boardroom, can you talk a little bit about where we're at with autonomous?
Oh, I'm sorry, you asked that question and I neglected to answer. So we launched the autonomous vehicle service in April 15th, where it's August now, April 15th, in and around Southwest Station in Eden Prairie. That was also on part of a regional solicitation grant, incidentally, that's paying for 80% of that. So far, it's about 18% of our total ridership on Prime, actually. So, and we've done some, we have kind of a regular survey that when people use the app, they give either a thumbs up or a thumbs down in terms of whether they like it. And the last time I looked at the number, it was 96, 97% thumbs up. Was one of the things we were concerned about, is how people are going to react to that. So, so at this point, I would say, so far so good. There's a couple of, well, one key thing in particular is because it's not fully autonomous yet at this point, it takes a little while to ramp up to that. So there's still an operator in the vehicle. So some percentage of the time that it's autonomous, some percentage is not. We really want to get to the point where it's, 100% autonomous. And then I would feel more comfortable about the economics of rolling it out to other places, because it's a little more expensive currently, because of that. But if you take the operator labor cost out of it, it gets to be a little bit, or a lot more cost effective. So I think when we get those things going, it's a 3-year program. In the next 2 years, we'll have a better idea of how we might be able to roll it out in other places. The biggest ridership areas for Prime outside of that Eden Prairie is kind of downtown Chaska, and then as you go up 41 to the Cub and Target and Home Depot, that whole area. I forget what the name of that shopping center is. I go there all the time, and now I can't remember what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's probably the next most logical spot for it. But I think we need to the jury's still out a little bit on the project.
If I may, just at one more minute.
Sure.
My daughter's 5, and a topic came up about autonomous, and she's like, I was there. And somebody's like, no, you've never done an autonomous thing. And she's like, no, Dad and I were in an autonomous, it drove itself, right?
That's true.
And
Yeah,
you never know what's
read the
going
opening,
to get stuck in their head, so it's a
Yeah.
marketing piece.
Yeah.
The other one is the basketball coach of my kids' team, we were talking about autonomous, and he's like, yeah, wouldn't that be great if you just dial it in so that you can, your 30 minutes to the office, you could get more work done, or, when you're driving out to South Dakota, you can take a nap or whatever it is. And I said, wouldn't it be cool if we could just deploy those for the kids that aren't on the softball or the basketball court? Right? The kids that ride barrier, we could just click a button and go get, the girl or the guy that's their barrier, because mom and dad can't take them or whatever. And so it plays into building community. I'm looking at Dr. Scott, because one of our biggest
Absolutely.
gaps on being the healthiest county in the state is sometimes those social connections aren't there. And transportation sometimes keeps us from there. And the example that I gave about if we can get more kids on the field, we're going to create more community relationships, and we're going to address mental health. And it's not that far of a stretch. And so that's why that's a practical reason why I'm invested in autonomous, is for those reasons.
It's a really good point. I will tell you that a surprisingly large number of rides that we provide are to Chaska and Chanhassen High School and Eden Prairie High School. I mean, students and, faculty and administrator types, and, it really is a fairly large number. And we've not met with Eastern Carver County Schools, but I did meet with the superintendent at Eden Prairie and kind of went over some of those things. And, it is a pretty good alternative for kids who might need a ride home from practice, or they might need to, have some other activity that they, are doing after school, and maybe the bus isn't available after that period of time. Parents, my kids are in their 20s now, but it wasn't that long ago that I was running them around activities, and it's a hard thing to do, as you know. I know your kids are that age, so.
Yep.
That, I would just say, Eastern Carver County Schools does provide an activities bus, so they do get 90%. of
Thank you.
those
I wasn't
kids,
aware of that.
for that, but, you know, there's always outliers, to that as well, so. And there's a limit to how many people can be on those.
Good. Well, thank you.
I will blend mobility with Workforce Development Board and tell everybody there remains a serious bus driver shortage.
There is, yeah.
Here on the precipice of another school year. Call up your local bus company and ask them how you can help.
Yep.
Okay. I have a motion. Thank you very much. Lyndon, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a motion and a second on this.
If I could have one, it's kind of a, you've been involved in transportation for quite some time. You're the former chair of the House Transportation Committee, and it's kind of ironic that you had to have surgery and so you couldn't drive. I noticed that you haven't driven for a while because I noticed where you parked this morning, you're parked crooked, but anyway, that's irrelevant. And we should actually have, maybe schedule, we'll talk to our administrator, maybe schedule a ride in the autonomous vehicle so we can actually criticize this driving.
We can arrange that.
My son and future daughter-in-law live in the autonomous zone. I don't know if they call it that. And so I'm encouraging them. They have a favorite restaurant over there by the transit station. And so I'm hoping to give that a shot. I didn't make the demonstration when you had it, so so maybe I can have a beer over there and have somebody drive me around town. So
Only one more thing. Thanks for your service on the tab and Lyndon's service on the tab too. And to understand all these, Eric mentioned that everything has changed, so then the scoring has changed, and you have to stay on top of this. Otherwise, we wouldn't be expanding our road system as much as we possibly could. And thanks to you, thanks to Lyndon, thanks to JP, who actually served on it for a while. And we just updated our strategic plan, and our employees are a strength. You can tell that by Kate Probert, who actually came and was available for any questions that we might have.
on her vacation.
On her vacation, which is absolutely wonderful. And we do very sexy stuff, as you mentioned. It's like, what was it? The septic mound replacement for Lake Minnewaska. Very sexy. Anyway, sorry.
And when, you know, beginning of this discussion, we talked about these different pots of money and how they can't migrate to other places, things we might have prioritized and other things. And you can thank people like Congressman Jim Oberstar up there in the Big Eighth, Arrowhead part of the state, God rest his soul, who put his bicycle toe heavy on bike path funding and a huge, so, you know, we all have constituents who, there's way too many of these bike trails, and, well, it's a fund that is maybe always flush, or it's pretty flush because of a guy like Jim Oberstar who bicycled everywhere all over the world, and so that's how you get that. So sometimes these funds look like they're out of whack, but there's not a whole lot we can do, so. Okay, a good discussion. Seeing no more discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. County Administrator report.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, a few calendar notes. So next Wednesday, the 27th, you should have received an invite for the Dakota Prairie composting tour. So make sure you're responding to that. You can go through Krista if you have any questions, or Brad Hansel's, I think, organizing that. And then this should be a fun one, 6:30 that evening, 4110. A lot of discussion about that, neighborhood meeting.
Yep.
So I'm sure.
Where is that meeting?
We've got Park Ridge Drive. Is that high school?
Is it outdoors?
The community center.
Community center.
will be?
Community
Community center is Park
Okay.
Ridge Drive.
Yep, 6:30, so make sure we'll get these posted with this.
Is that on a list as a meeting if three of us
Yep.
show up?
It will be posted on Thursday with this draft.
Oh, okay.
And she posted on the website. So,
Oh, yep, got it.
Is that it?
No, and then back to Tuesday, so the 26th, you'll see in the packet the budget information. So big meeting to talk about the recommendations. What I would note, the recommendations not only include what will be in the packet, but there'll be a presentation. So the packet, of course, comes out Thursday. Presentation will come out Monday. And then, of course, we'll present on Tuesday. And it's not just the numbers, it's the strategies in the presentation. And it's also the bigger picture that will be included in the presentation, looking not only year to date, but then the future long-term financial planning. So I recognize it's a bit piecemeal. So if you could be patient and wait for it all to come together, and we'll open that up for discussion on the 26th. And obviously, remember, it's preliminary levy. That's a work session. So then we move into September with that formal request to adopt the preliminary levy, and then there's a few more months here until the end of December. So a long ways to go. But just want to remind you of that process and what's coming to you.
And whose budget is that right now?
Yeah, that's the county administrators, technically. Yes, sir.
Is that it?
How many times will I get reminded?
Okay, he's all done. Commissioner Lynch, do you have a motion?
I'd like to motion to adjourn and wish Krista a happy birthday. She won't tell me how old she is, so I believe it's her 21st.
Young, she's young.
Yeah.
I'd like to remind you that Krista agreed to do this job if she could be back behind the radar, under the radar. So, but happy birthday, Krista.
Good luck.
What would we do without you?
Fridays are.
I got a motion by Lynch and a second by Fahey to adjourn this wonderful meeting. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes.
Great meeting.